The Langley Tower sparkled like a crown under the Seattle skyline, 42 stories of polished glass and legacy. From her corner office at the top floor, Sophia Langley could see the world, Puget Sound's shimmer, the congested I-5 snaking toward the horizon, the cranes on the docks that moved metal and dreams in equal parts. But what she couldn't see, not from up there, was herself. "Sophia, the Dubai investors are on the line," murmured Carla, her temporary assistant, cautious like a deer. They were on their 4th assistant this year. "Tell them I'll call back," Sophia said flatly, her eyes still on the window. "I'm not in the mood to sell the moon today." Carla hesitated. "But they—" "Carla." "Yes, ma'am." Sophia let the silence reclaim the room. Her reflection stared back at her, faint on the glass. Flawless hair, sculpted cheekbones, the kind of tailored power suit that cost more than most people's rent. But inside? Hollow. She turned away, heels echoing on the marble floor, and walked to her desk. A box sat there, old, leather-bound. No label, no origin. Carla had placed it there earlier, said it was sent anonymously. Inside, a journal, worn, Spanish cursive, delicate, dated in the late 1950s. "Mi nombre es Isabela Rivera. Nací en Guadalajara, Jalisco. Y esta es mi historia." Sophia froze. "Isabela?" she whispered. Her mother's name was Camila. This wasn't Camila's handwriting. It was her grandmother's. She'd never known much about her. The Langley version of history began with Camilla, who, as the story went, met and married Gregory Langley at a gala in New York, rising from obscurity like a phoenix. But this was a different story. No llegué a Los Ángeles buscando fortuna. Llegué buscando sobrevivir. Dormí en parques. Comí lo que otros dejaban. Lavé platos por monedas. Pero aprendí a mirar el alma de la gente. Sophia sat, hands trembling. She read for hours, stories of love, of betrayal, of working as a cleaner in rich homes where no one looked her in the eye. And yet, of hope. A young woman who had once been invisible, just like Sophia now wished to be. That night, Sophia canceled her appearance at the National Housing Gala in LA. She didn't send an excuse. She pulled cash from a vault she hadn't touched in years, packed a duffel bag with old jeans and hoodies, and left her penthouse behind. She became Sophie Rivera before sunrise. 2 weeks later, she was sitting on a sidewalk in Portland, Oregon, cold and uncertain, with a backpack and a heart cracked open. She'd picked the city almost randomly. It was far enough to disappear, but not so far that she couldn't walk away if it all became too much. The shelter was full that night. She sat on the edge of the curb, pretending not to exist. That's when he stopped in front of her. Boots scuffed, hands greasy, black curls under a trucker cap. A warm face, quiet strength. "Hey," the man said. "You okay?" Sophie looked up. She hadn't spoken in hours. "I'm fine," she said. It wasn't true and he knew it. He tilted his head. "You don't look fine. You hungry?" She hesitated. He took off his backpack, pulled out a sandwich wrapped in foil and a bottle of water and held it out. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Not a creep. Just someone who's been down once, too." Her fingers shook as she took the food. "Thank you," she murmured. "You got a place to sleep?" She shook her head. "I can call someone at the center," he offered. "They've got a few emergency beds. I don't want charity. Not charity, just kindness." She looked into his eyes. They weren't judging, just seeing her. "I'm Sophie." He smiled. "Nice to meet you, Sophie." The next morning, she found herself at the Rosewood Community Center, folding donated clothes and cleaning tables. She wasn't sure how it happened. One moment she was just killing time, and the next Daniel had asked, "Want to help out?" And she'd said yes before thinking. Helping felt good, normal, tangible. Daniel worked at a nearby auto shop. He came, by every lunch break with grease-streaked hands and a kid in tow. "Lucas. Lucas, this is Miss Sophie." "Lucas, all big brown eyes and gap-toothed grin, gave her a shy wave. "Hi," he said. "You look like a teacher," she laughed. "That's a first." "You smell like soap," Lucas added. "The nice kind," Daniel laughed. "Told you not to comment on people's smell." Sophie grinned. "It's okay. I like soap." From that moment on, Lucas was glued to her every time she showed up, and she kept showing up. Weeks passed. Sophie swept floors, helped prep meals, taught Lucas how to play chess, learned how to breathe again. Daniel never pried, never asked why she was here, where she came from. He just listened. One night, after closing the center, they walked side by side along the wet sidewalk. "You're not like most people who come through here," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" "You hold your fork like you've been to etiquette school." She blinked. "Maybe I have." He looked at her. "And you quote Neruda when you think no one's listening." Sophie stopped walking. "I thought you didn't pry." "I don't. But I notice." She smiled, caught between laughter and fear. "What else do you notice?" Daniel hesitated. Then, "That when you look at Lucas, your eyes soften, like you've missed something or someone." Her throat tightened. She looked away. "I never had a child," she said softly. "But sometimes I wonder if I should have." Daniel nodded. "And you?" she asked. "You ever think about dating again?" He exhaled. "Sometimes, but it's hard. My wife, she had this laugh that filled a room, and she believed in me before I ever did." Sophie watched his face as he spoke. "She was lucky," she said. "I was the lucky one," he replied. They stopped at her corner. "The shelter tonight had space. Thanks for walking me." Daniel hesitated. "You ever want to have dinner? I mean, just something simple. I make a killer chili." Sophie smiled. "I'd like that." And she meant it. She was living a life with no luxury, no staff, no safety net. But for the first time in years, she felt real. Each smile with Lucas, each quiet talk with Daniel, added something back into her chest that she didn't realize was missing. One evening, after dinner at Daniel's modest apartment, Lucas already asleep, they sat on the porch. "You know," Daniel said, "I think you're the bravest person I've ever met." Sophie looked at him. "You don't know anything about me. I know you left something. Or someone. I don't need the details, I just know. It takes guts to start over." She swallowed. "I didn't start over. I ran away." He shook his head. "Same thing, if you're running towards something better." Sophie blinked. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "I used to be someone else," she said. Daniel reached over, gently wiped the tear with his thumb. "You're someone now." And then, slowly, he kissed her. Not like a man claiming a prize, but like someone holding a truth. She kissed him back, and for a second, everything else, the tower, the money, the lies, disappeared. She was just Sophie, and she was free. Rain had returned to Portland with quiet persistence, the kind that wasn't heavy enough to chase people indoors, but constant enough to leave everything damp and reflective. The sidewalk glistened as Sophie walked toward the community center. Hood pulled low, a paper bag of warm empanadas tucked beneath her arm. She'd baked them herself. Well, more or less. Maria, the cook at the center, had barked orders while Sophie fumbled with dough and overstuffed the first 2 batches. But the smell of home, onion, cumin, a hint of lime, filled her soul like a hymn. She hadn't cooked for anyone in over a decade. Inside, the center was already buzzing. Lucas was seated cross-legged on the floor with a coloring book, tongue sticking out in concentration. He glanced up and beamed. "Sophie," he shouted. "I saved you the purple crayon. Only the best for me, huh?" She grinned, crouching. Beside him, Daniel stood nearby, wiping his hands on a towel, his face flushed from lifting boxes. "Hey," he said. "You look..." He paused. "You look really happy today." "I made food," she said, "and only ruined half of it." He laughed. "That's improvement." She handed him the bag. "Lunch?" He opened it, sniffed, and closed his eyes. "That's real food, you trying to win me over?" She gave him a coy smile. "Maybe." They sat together in the back room while the center buzzed on the other side of the wall. They didn't talk much. The comfort was in the chewing, the occasional glance, the way their knees touched beneath the small plastic table. "You ever think about going back?" Daniel asked suddenly. She stiffened. "Back? Wherever you came from. Family. Old life." She looked down at her hands. "There's nothing to go back to." He didn't push. He never did. But something flickered in his eyes, and Sophie knew he was wondering. Everyone had someone. Why didn't she? That night, she couldn't sleep. The old mattress at the shelter creaked each time she turned. A woman 2 bunks over was coughing into her blanket. Somewhere downstairs, someone was yelling. Sophie lay still, eyes on the cracked ceiling, her mind at war. She missed her mother, not the Camilla Langley the world saw on magazine covers, the poised socialite with the pearl earrings and quiet smile, but the woman who used to hum rancheras in the kitchen on Sunday mornings when Sophia was a little girl, before her father turned the volume down, before the family name became currency and love became transactional. She remembered the smell of tamales, the low voice that used to whisper, "Nunca te esqueças de onde vem, hija." Don't forget where you come from. She had. Until now. Over the next few weeks, Sophie's routine solidified. Mornings at the shelter, afternoons at the center, evenings with Daniel and Lucas, sometimes eating together, sometimes just sitting outside and watching the city darken around them. With Lucas, the connection was instant and effortless. One afternoon, they played checkers while Daniel worked late. "I like when you're around," Lucas said, not looking up from the board. "You don't talk too much." "Is that a compliment?" He shrugged. "My teacher talks all the time. You don't. You just see people." Sophie swallowed. "I see you, Lucas. Do you miss your kid?" She blinked. "What?" "You don't have one, but I think maybe you did. Or you wanted one. That's why you know how to talk to me." She stared at him, startled by the raw truthfulness in his voice. "No," she said softly. "I never had a child, but I think if I did, I'd want them to be like you." Lucas smiled. "With missing teeth and loud sneakers?" "With a good heart." That weekend, Daniel invited her to the auto shop. She'd never stepped inside. One before, not really. The grease, the hum of machines, the radio blaring old rock songs, and it was all new. Raw. Real. "Hand me that wrench?" Daniel asked, under a 2006 Subaru. She looked around in panic. "Which one is the wrench?" He peeked out, amused. "The silver one with the open end." She handed him a flathead screwdriver. He laughed. "Close enough." She sat on a stack of tires watching him work. "You know," she said, "in my old life I used to drive a Bentley." He raised an eyebrow. "Fancy," she smirked. "Didn't know how to pump my own gas." "You're serious?" "Dead." "Wow." He paused. "So what changed?" She hesitated. "Everything. All at once." He nodded, wiping his brow. "Sometimes life's got a weird way of cleaning house." She glanced around. "I never realized how much I hated being served." Daniel looked at her, really looked. "You know what I see when I look at you?" She braced herself. "What?" "Not someone who had it all. Someone who was probably very lonely." Her breath caught. She wanted to tell him the truth, so badly. That she was Sophia Langley, CEO of Langley Enterprises, worth nearly $3 billion. That she once sat on boards with senators and dined with tech giants. But if she did, what would happen to this? To him? To Lucas? So instead she said, "You're right, I was." That night, they kissed again. It wasn't planned. They were sitting on the porch, drinking hot chocolate. Lucas was asleep. The air was sharp, the sky scattered with stars. Daniel brushed her hair behind her ear. "I keep thinking this is a dream." Sophie laughed. Why? Because I've been alone for so long, and now you're here. It doesn't feel real. She leaned into him. It's real. And when their lips met, something unspoken passed between them. Not just desire, but recognition. Of pain, of healing, of possibility. But love, true love, demands truth. And the weight of her secret grew heavier each day. At night, she dreamed of elevators, of glass walls, of Carla knocking on doors and lawyers whispering behind her back. She dreamed of boardrooms where her name was spoken with reverence and fear. And then she'd wake up in a shared room with peeling paint and a humming heater, wondering who she really was. One afternoon, she walked to the library and searched public records. She found it almost immediately, a short obituary from 1963 LA Times, barely a paragraph. Isabella Rivera, domestic worker, died in a house fire in West Hollywood. Survived by daughter Camilla, but something didn't add up. She flipped through old census records, medical archives, and there, hidden in a scanned hospital log, a different entry. Isabella Rivera, discharged 1964, mental health facility. Fresno, say alive, not dead. Her family had lied. They'd buried her memory, scrubbed her from their history, for status, for shame. And now Sophia Langley, the granddaughter of the woman they erased, was rediscovering her humanity on the very streets her grandmother once walked. That night, she sat across from Daniel, her heart pounding. I need to tell you something. He put down his fork. Okay. It's about me, about who I am. He studied her, calm. I'm listening. She opened her mouth and closed it. Coward. I was someone else. Before this. Daniel waited. I had money, a lot of it, power, a name people knew. He didn't flinch, but I wasn't happy. I was lost, so I walked away. Daniel leaned in. Why are you telling me this? Because I care about you. And I care about Lucas. And I don't want to lie anymore. He took a deep breath. Okay. Okay. I figured there was more to your story. You look like someone who's used to being obeyed. She laughed. That obvious? Yeah. But none of that matters to me. Her chest tightened. Why not? Because the woman I know, the one who laughs with my kid, who stays late at the center, who brings empanadas she burned, that's the woman I care about. She blinked fast. You're not a bank account, Sophie. You're a heartbeat. The first snow of the season came early that year, soft and quiet, like forgiveness. The streets of Portland glowed in the evening light, rooftops dusted in white, and children laughed as they threw the first clumsy snowballs of the year. Inside, the Rosewood Community Center, it was warm, chaotic, alive. Volunteers sorted coats. Lucas ran between tables with a string of lights, determined to wrap every pole in the place. Daniel was fixing a heater in the back hallway. Sophie stood near the window, watching it all with a cup of chamomile tea in her hands, her breath fogging the glass, but she felt no warmth. She'd received the email that morning. From Carla. Subject: urgent. Your father is dying. 6 words. As cold as the snow. Carla had tracked her. A news outlet had speculated her absence. For weeks, board meetings missed, appearances canceled, projects halted. The silence was beginning to make noise. And now the man who had once ruled her world, William Langley, was in a hospital in Seattle, his heart failing. He was asking for her. Sophie had stared at the message for an hour before finally responding. I'll come. One night only. No press, no cameras. Have the car wait at the old back entrance. But how do you leave a life you just started to remember, a life you want to forget? She didn't tell Daniel that night. Instead, she kissed him on his porch, whispered, "See you tomorrow," and walked home in silence. Seattle was gray when she arrived. Familiar. Cold. The Langley estate stood as she remembered. Stark, grand, hollow. She passed security like a ghost. Her father lay in a hospital bed by the window, smaller than she remembered, fragile as paper. Jesus, he rasped. "You cut your hair." She didn't smile. He tried again. "It suits you. Less corporate." She sat, said nothing. "I didn't call you to fight," he murmured. "I called because I don't want to die without making something right." She stared at him. "I lied about your grandmother." Sophia's heart thudded. She didn't die in a fire. She broke. After Camilla left for college, they institutionalized her, said she was a liability. I helped cover it up. "Why?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. "Because this country doesn't make space for immigrant maids with mental illness. And because we were building something, a legacy." "No, you were burying people." William Langley exhaled. "Your mother hated me for it, but she stayed. She wanted you to have a future. I had a cage." He reached for her hand. She didn't take it. "Come back," he said. "To the board, to the company. You're the only Langley left." Sophia stood. "That's not who I am anymore. You don't get to throw it all away." "I already did," she said softly. "And it's the best decision I've ever made." That night she returned to Portland. But she didn't go home. She went to the Langley Tower Hotel. The penthouse was as she'd left it. Glass and steel. Cold perfection. She called Carla. "I need a favor. I need you to send Daniel Reyes and his son an invitation. Private dinner. Tell them. It's from Sophia Langley." The next evening, Daniel entered the penthouse in borrowed shoes and a blazer that didn't quite fit. Lucas walked beside him, wide-eyed. The place was silent. Sophie stood near the window in a midnight blue gown, hair pulled back, her face carefully composed. "Welcome," she said quietly. Daniel froze. "Sophie?" he asked. She stepped closer. "It's Sophia. My real name is Sophia Langley." He blinked, stunned. "Langley, as in..." "Yes." Lucas looked up. "What's happening?" "I needed you to know who I really am," she said. Daniel looked around, dazed. This is who you are?" "No," she said, her voice breaking. "This is who I used to be." He stared at her. "You lied to me," he said quietly. "I never lied about how I felt," she said. "Every moment with you and with Lucas when was real. You let me believe you were like us. I wanted to be, I needed to be." Daniel shook his head. "You played us." "No," she whispered. "I finally found something real, and I was terrified of losing it. I still am." He backed away. "You think you can just drop this bomb and what? I forgive you because you cry in a nice dress?" "I didn't bring you here for forgiveness," she said. "I brought you here because I can't keep pretending anymore. Not with you." Lucas stepped forward. "Dad?" "We're leaving," Daniel said, his voice flat. Lucas turned to her. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" She knelt to his level. "Because I was scared. And because, for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. Not for what I owned, but for who I was." Lucas nodded slowly, then took Daniel's hand. "Let's go," Daniel said. They left. And Sophia, alone, again, sat down on the marble floor of her empire and cried until morning. Weeks passed. She dissolved the board, renamed the company. Langley Enterprises became the Rivera Foundation. She liquidated her personal assets, began a project to build 2,000 homes across neglected neighborhoods in Juarez, South LA, and Inner Portland. No press, no red carpets, just real work. The press speculated breakdown, rebrand, scandal. She gave no interviews. At night, she read her grandmother's journal by candlelight, page by page. She learned about the woman the world forgot, and found pieces of herself in every sentence. Spring bloomed in Portland. Sophie returned to the center, quietly. No fanfare. She mopped floors, sorted canned goods, smiled at new volunteers who didn't recognize her. And then one Saturday morning, Daniel walked in. He stood in the doorway for a long time before approaching. "I heard what you've been doing," he said. She looked up, surprised. I didn't expect you to come. He shrugged. Lucas insisted. She smiled. He's a good kid. Daniel studied her. You really gave it all up? I didn't give it up, she said. I traded it. For peace. He nodded. You could have told me the truth from the start. I know, she said, and I'm sorry I didn't. I was still learning how to be myself. He stepped closer. Lucas misses you. I miss him too. They stood in silence. I'm not here to make promises, he said. I still don't know what this is. It doesn't have to be anything, she said softly. I just want you to know. Sophie was never a lie. She was who I always was underneath everything. He looked into her eyes, and slowly, hesitantly, he reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. Okay, he said. Let's start there. For a long time, Sophia didn't try to reach out again. She respected Daniel's silence, not because it was easy, but because it was deserved. Truth, she had learned, was not just about what you say. It was about when you say it. And the damage of delay wasn't erased by good intentions, so she worked. Her hands, once manicured and idle, grew rough and calloused. She helped lay tile in South Portland, painted walls in Juarez, and held the hand of a grieving mother at a housing rights rally in Boyle Heights. She gave speeches at city council meetings, not from a podium in heels, but in muddy jeans, her voice quiet and unwavering. Every day she read one page of Isabella's journal. Her grandmother's words, once distant, now pulsed through her like a second heartbeat. Las personas no son pobres por lo que tienen, son ricas por lo que dan. People are not poor for what they have. They are rich for what they give. And slowly, without realizing it, Sophia Langley stopped being a name in Forbes. She became Sophie Rivera, not a disguise anymore, but a woman rebuilt from the ground up. In April, the center held a spring fair. Balloons tied to railings, banners painted by the kids, tamales wrapped in foil and sold for $1 each. Sophie worked the food stand, laughing with Maria and chasing toddlers away from the hot trays. Daniel arrived with Lucas just after noon. He wore a soft gray shirt and had trimmed his beard. Lucas ran straight to Sophie, hugging her without hesitation. I got a B on my math test, he said, eyes shining. Sophie grinned. That's amazing. It's not an A, Daniel said, smirking as he approached. Lucas groaned. Dad, Sophie laughed. I think it's perfect. Daniel nodded. So do I. They stood close, just enough that their shoulders brushed when the wind shifted. I didn't expect to see you here, she said. I didn't think I'd come, he admitted. But Lucas asked, and I guess I was curious. Curious about what? Whether you were still you? She tilted her head. And am I? He studied her. More than ever. They didn't rush anything. Daniel didn't ask her to come back to their lives. Sophie didn't beg. They just talked. About work. About Lucas. About life. It was enough. That evening, after the fair ended and volunteers swept the sidewalks, Daniel stayed behind. Sophie leaned against a folding table, sipping from a chipped mug. Funny, she said. I used to speak at galas where people applauded just because I wore a dress that cost more than a car. And now? Now, I get more joy from watching Lucas eat 3 tamales in a row. Daniel chuckled. He threw up in the car by the way. She laughed, eyes crinkling. He took a step closer. I've been thinking. Dangerous, she teased. He smiled but didn't laugh. About us. Sophie's heart beat faster. I know who you are now, all of it, he said, and I've had time to think about what that means. She waited. I realized I never really wanted someone perfect, he said. I just wanted someone real. Someone who chooses love even when it's messy. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know what happens next, he said, but I'm not afraid of trying anymore if you still want to. Sophie nodded, unable to speak. He took her hand. Not a grand gesture, just a hand in a hand. A beginning. Over the next months, they rebuilt trust not through dramatic scenes or apologies, but through presence. Daniel would bring her coffee during her early site visits. She'd help Lucas with his homework on Thursdays. Sometimes they said nothing, just sat together watching the sun fall behind the hills, breathing in sync. The city whispered their names less and less. Langley Tower changed. Its signage. The skyline shifted. Sophia received invitations, CNN, TEDx, Time magazine, but declined them all. She wasn't trying to inspire a movement. She was trying to become a better version of herself. And for once, that was enough. One evening in late summer, Sophie found an old photo in her storage box. Her mother, Camilla, at age 20, smiling, holding the hand of an older woman with gray-streaked hair, Isabella. She had never noticed it before. Her mother looked free. She stared at the photo for a long time. Then she called Daniel. "Can I show you something?" They sat on his porch under fading stars. "She was the reason I disappeared," Sophie said, passing him the photo. "She?" "My grandmother. Isabella, the woman in the journal, the one they erased." Daniel studied the photo. "You look like her," he said quietly. Sophie smiled. "I hope I become her." "You already are." That night, as they watched Lucas sleep, Daniel whispered, "Do you think we'll ever tell him who you really were?" Sophie looked down at the boy, his small chest rising and falling, his cheeks still sticky with chocolate. "Someday," she said, "when he's old enough to understand that names don't mean anything. Only choices do." Daniel nodded. "I'm glad you made the choice to stay." Sophie looked at him. "I didn't stay," she said softly. "I came home." A year passed. The name Sophia Langley still echoed in real estate circles, though not with the same reverence or fear. She was no longer the queen of the skyline. Her power had been redistributed, sold off, repurposed. The Rivera Foundation had become something larger than any one woman. It was a collective now. Builders, social workers, architects, activists. It existed not to dominate, but to serve. Just like Isabella had once served, unnoticed, in homes that had forgotten her name. Sophie didn't need anyone to remember hers. The morning of her 39th birthday, she woke up to the smell of cinnamon and burned toast. Lucas was in the kitchen, proudly wearing a chef's apron 3 sizes too big, Daniel beside him pretending not to panic as smoke curled from the toaster. "Happy birthday," Lucas shouted, handing her a plate with a half-squished pancake shaped like a heart. Sophie laughed, wiping sleep from her eyes. "Is that edible?" "Barely," Daniel admitted. "It's a love pancake," Lucas said, beaming. "Extra crispy." She bit into it and made a dramatic face. "Best pancake I've ever had." Later that day, they went to the hill overlooking the Willamette River. It had become their place. Daniel brought a picnic. Lucas brought his sketch pad. Sophie brought the photo of her mother and grandmother, now framed. "I used to think birthdays were for measuring success," she said, watching the river. "How many deals closed, how many countries visited, how many zeros in my account. And now?" Daniel asked. "Now I think they're for measuring peace. How many nights you sleep without regrets. How many mornings start with a laugh. How many people you love, and who love you back." He kissed the top of her head. Lucas interrupted, holding up a drawing. "It's us." 3 stick figures under a big sun standing in front of a house. One had long hair, one had a beard, one had bright blue sneakers. Sophie smiled. "I like that house." "It's our house," Lucas said. "Someday." That someday came sooner than expected. Sophie used the last of her personal savings to buy a small 2-bedroom home just 10 minutes from the center. Nothing flashy. A porch, a garden, a creaky stair. She let Lucas choose the wall colors. He picked mint green for the kitchen and superhero blue for his bedroom. Daniel built shelves by hand. Sophie planted lavender by the windows. On the mailbox, they painted one word, Rivera. Occasionally, someone from the old world would find her, a former board member, a journalist, even Carla, who now ran logistics for the foundation from LA. "Don't you miss it?" Carla once asked over coffee. "The power? The influence?" Sophie had smiled. "I didn't lose influence. I just changed how I use it." They clinked mugs, and that was that. One Saturday morning, Sophie stood at the front of a classroom in the community center. 20 women sat in folding chairs, single mothers, immigrants, women fleeing violence. Watching her with guarded eyes, she cleared her throat. "My name is Sophie Rivera," she said. "I used to believe success was about being seen, but now I think it's about seeing others." She paused, then added, "My grandmother was a domestic worker. My mother tried to hide that. I spent years pretending I came from a different story. But I don't want to pretend anymore." One woman raised her hand. "So, you were rich?" Sophie smiled. "Very. Why'd you leave all that?" Sophie looked at her. "Because I wanted to be happy." The woman nodded like she understood more than she could say. That night, as Sophie sat on the porch, the air thick with summer and distant music from the neighbor's barbecue, Daniel joined her. "Lucas is asleep," he said, handing her a glass of lemonade. She took it. "Did he brush his teeth?" "Probably not." She leaned against him. "He's becoming someone." Daniel nodded. "So are you." A beat of silence passed. "Do you ever think about getting married again?" she asked quietly. Daniel looked at her, thoughtful. "I think about building something that doesn't need a label to be real," he said. She smiled. "Good answer. But yes," he added. "Someday." She reached into her pocket and handed him a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" "A copy of my grandmother's birth certificate. I had it restored." He opened it carefully. "I'm thinking about legally changing my last name," she said, "to Rivera, not because I want to erase the past, but because I want to honor the part that was erased." Daniel didn't say anything right away. He just leaned over and kissed her gently. "I think she'd be proud," he said. Sophie closed her eyes. "I hope so." 1 year later, at the grand opening of the Isabella Rivera Women's Shelter in East LA, Sophie stood before a modest crowd. Daniel was in the back, arms folded. Lucas wore a suit and looked annoyed about it. Sophie took the mic. "This place is named after a woman who spent her life unseen, who lived with dignity even when the world gave her none. She was my grandmother. And this shelter, these walls, are a promise that no one should ever feel forgotten again." The room applauded, but Sophie didn't smile for the cameras. She smiled at Daniel, at Lucas, at the life they'd built not out of wealth or convenience, but of courage. Later that night, Lucas curled up on the couch, half asleep, while Sophie sat at her desk writing in a new journal. "My name is Sophie Rivera. I was born from stories both told and buried. I've been rich and I've been invisible. I've been loved and I've been alone. But the truth is simple. I did not find love in mansions or magazines. I found it in a shared laugh, in a child's drawing, in the soft way a man says my name when no one is listening. And if I ever forget who I am again, I know now where to look."